All right, here we are. Rotating thrusters with no mods, no scripts, part 3. As you can see, we're picking up where we left off in part 2. Our thrusters rotate and do what we want, but they stay in the last position that we used them in. The way that I would prefer it set up is to have it to where they always point forward when I'm in zero gravity mode, and then where they're always default to up when you're in atmospheric mode. And right now in zero gravity mode, if I use up blast, and they're going to stay in the up position. So, and then also sometimes you have it to where they don't stay on. You can kind of make them to where backwards won't turn on when it needs to. So yeah, we're going to go through that, and also our azimuthine thruster position so that we don't get the smoke trails. So our wings can go from negative 45 to 45. And we're going to offset our thrusters again so we don't get the smoke trail from the hydrogen overlap, I guess. And then I've got these separated as stern, mid, and bow in groups. All right, going to get right into it. All right, so we have atmospheric in zero gravity mode. And then what we're going to do is we're going to create some repeaters. And basically these repeaters just repeat the action that we want. So we're going to set up a zero gravity mode backwards repeater, and it's going to start itself because we want it to repeat. And it's going to position itself in the proper backwards position of 270 on the port and 90 on the starboard. We're at 15 RPMs, auto rotation. And then also we're going to add our azimuthine hinges for our stern, bow, and mid thruster placement. So we're going to set our bow at negative 30, our mid at negative 5, and our stern at 20 for backwards. It's at 4 RPMs. We're going to trigger that, and that offsets our thrusters for our backwards position. But with our backwards repeater on, it's going to always want to just repeat and stay in the backwards position every 1 second. All right, so we're going to stop that. We're going to set up our forward repeater in zero gravity mode. Again, we're just going to start our forward repeater so that it repeats itself. And then we're going to put our thrusters to forward proper, 90 degrees on the port, and 270 degrees on the starboard side. 15 RPMs, auto rotation, and then we're going to set our bow hinge to 20, our mid hinge set to a negative 5. These are groups, and then our stern hinges to negative 30. Again at 4 RPMs. And then when we trigger that, that puts us in our forward position where our thrusters are offset of each other. But as you can see, forward is constantly repeating. Alright, so I'm going to turn that off, or I'm sorry, stop it. And then we're going to go to our atmospheric repeaters, and up is our main one. So we're going to start up so that it repeats itself. And then we're just going to set our port and starboard hinges to 180 degrees at 15 RPMs, auto rotation. And there we go. That puts us in the up position. Our hinges are in the right orientation though. Alright, so we're going to set up our backwards repeater, stop the up repeater, set the backwards up. Again, we're going to start our atmospheric backwards repeater. We're going to set our port hinge to 225 at 15, and our starboard to 135 at 15 auto rotation, and this is going to set us in our atmospheric backwards position. Alright, so we're going to stop that, and then we're going to switch our modes on, atmospheric mode and ZG mode. Go into Atmo mode, and so everything atmospheric is on and everything zero gravity is off. So we're going to add our repeaters to this, atmospheric repeaters on, zero gravity repeaters off. And then also, our atmo thrusters on, we're going to set our azimuthine hinges to -25, again at 4 RPMs, and then we're going to trigger the up on repeater for atmospheric mode. ZG mode, everything ZG on, so repeaters on, everything atmospheric off, atmo repeaters off, atmo thrusters off, and then we're going to trigger our forward on repeater. Alright, so that's going to set us to the forward position. So if we trigger atmo, we get our atmospheric setup. And then if we trigger zero gravity, let's turn atmo off, trigger zero gravity, we get our zero gravity setup. As you can see, our forward repeater is going as it should be. Alright. The next part of this is setting up our event controllers. So for our ZG backwards, we have our typical rotor rotation, but we need to add our repeaters to this. Alright, so this we're going to start our backwards retreater and stop. True, start, false, stop. And then for our forward, we're going to stop it and start it. So when it's true, it's stopped, false, it starts. Alright, and then we're going to trigger our backwards repeater. Forward, similar. Our forward repeater, we're going to start it when true, stop it when false. And then our backwards repeater, we're going to stop it. And then we're going to trigger our forward repeater. So we're not going to start our backwards repeater, we're just going to stop it. And then also we're going to turn off our backwards EVC, turn it off and on. And then our up EVC also, we're going to turn it off and then on. So off when true and on when false. Alright, for up, all we're going to do here is stop and start our forward repeater. So true is stop, false is start. And then also we're going to set our azimuthine hinges to 0 at 4 RPMs. So now everything should work as intended. Have a nice rotation on our thrusters. It's kind of a cool little switch on the thrusters as they turn. Just kind of a neat little effect. Everything seems to work as intended. Alright, cool. And then it returns to forward when it stops. Okay, so we're going to go in and set up the atmospheric portion of this. And so very similar as ZG backwards. We're just going to add our on repeater to start, and stop are backwards on, and then our up repeater to stop and start. And then our EVC up is going to be turned off and then on. Down is just these thrusters. Atmospheric forward, we're going to stop our backwards repeater. We're going to stop and start our up repeater, and then we're going to turn off and on our backwards and up EVCs. And then for up, we're just going to start our up repeater, and that's it. Okay, so we're going to get this down in the atmosphere. If you remember from part 2, it's basically the gravity, which is going to trigger our atmospheric mode. So when we get to 0.8 Gs, it'll trigger atmospheric mode. And there we go. Okay, so we have our dampeners off, but our azimuthine thrusters are still reacting because they're on a subgrid. It's not going to be enough to stop us. So we're going to turn our dampeners on, and that's going to bring us to a halt. Our backwards thrusters are triggering the backwards motion on the rotating thrusters. So that'll take a few seconds to bring us to a halt. And this is our atmospheric mode. Appears to be working properly. Self-leveling system is turned on right now, which I'll go over in a future video of how I put that together. Alright, so everything functions as normal. Up, forward, reverse. Cool. Thanks for watching. I'm going to put out a part 4 that's going to cover right and left, and then another part that'll cover the self-leveling system and the attitude adjusters.